I've got a Revit model with a bunch of facade elements. I've linked into it a Revit mass model that is just containing mass elements that are acting as information containers. And I'm opening an Anker table where I've filtered out anything that is not the facade elements. I'm giving these elements a color override in the active view based on which mass element they belong to or where they are basically placed. So I'm moving this. Let me move this guy over to the right. Right now they think that they are in the same mass, which is okay because I haven't really saved my changes. But if I save this Revit file or synchronize to central and move that change into the Revit database, I update the Anker database live and it updates the color back in Revit live. I'm gonna take the facade element on level 2 and do the same thing, just move it all the way over to the right here, and do the same thing, save basically, and see what happens. 3 different colors, and that's because they belong to 3 different volume elements. Now, just to have some fun, I can move this guy up here and copy this guy up here and then see if we pick up a 4th mass that we are supposed to belong to. And indeed we do. But an interesting fact, you see the window has a different color than the covering of the facade. The facade module has a stone covering and an insulation wall behind it, but the window now belongs to a different control volume, basically because of the bounding box middle being inside or outside that top yellow control volume that you see over to the right. So that actually, like, even though it was an accident, it's pretty cool. I'm going to delete this guy, or actually let's just move them back to where they belong over here. I'm going to move this guy over here. Now let's just delete them, and I'll take these 3 elements, do an array. Let's see, 9 probably, 2.4 meters to the right. That should complete the facade. I'll go through a normal sync again, and then the same algorithm should just run again. Yeah, there you go. Bunch of full facade model basically, and a color override that shows that they are all getting basically information about belonging to a different mass. What is even cooler about this is that I can also, in the same way, automatically copy all the data on these mass elements to all the nested components in these facade elements. I won't show that, but I promise you it works. So last, I want to take it maybe a little bit further, and this is really cool. I'm like a little bit like a Revit geek. I find this very fascinating. But if I open 2 Revit sessions, I have my facade model here to the left, I have my interior model to the right, and then I do the same thing. I'm going to open an Anker table. I use the AT shortcut for that because I do this all the time, and I have a control zone table that does not filter the elements based on if they are in one file or the other. So this is a sum. I'm basically seeing a sum of all the elements in the entire project, not like rooms and zones and levels and so on, but just like the model elements that I'm looking at. And if I apply a color override to these elements, they're basically getting a color override now in 2 different Revit sessions based on the same data. So I have control zones modeled as mass elements in Revit in one Revit file linked into the interior model and the facade model. I've written a bunch of data on these mass elements, and they are automatically pushing that data to the elements based on which mass basically that they are inside. And what's even cooler now is that this table, which is basically an Electron application inside of Revit, it talks to both these Revit sessions and applies that color override to all the elements, but I can also select them. So if I click on this row and this row and this row, basically what you're seeing here is that I'm selecting all the elements regardless of Revit session based on which zone ID they belong to. Now, for a Revit nerd who's been using Revit for 18 years, this is pretty cool. I love it. I hope you like it too, and see you later.